My brother Derek stood there with that smug grin, holding Dad's will like a trophy. The mahogany conference table separated us, but it might as well have been an ocean. His manicured fingers gripped the document while Mr. Fitzgerald's office fell into complete silence. I leave everything to my son Derek. My daughter Rachel abandoned me. Those words felt like knives piercing straight through my chest. I'd visited Dad every single day for 3 years while he battled cancer. Every single day through chemotherapy, through radiation, through those long nights when he couldn't sleep from the pain. Derek hadn't shown his face in 5 years, not once, not even for Dad's 70th birthday when the whole family gathered. The room spun around me as Derek's smile grew wider. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the table, trying to process what I was hearing. 3 years of sacrifice, 3 years of love, reduced to nothing in a single sentence. Then my 9-year-old son, Tyler, suddenly stood up from his chair, his small frame barely reaching the table's height. His voice cut through the suffocating tension like a blade. "Mom, Grandpa told me something before he died. Should I tell everyone what Uncle Derek did to the real Will?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Derek's face transformed in an instant, the smugness draining away like water from a broken dam. His skin turned white as paper, then gray, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Mr. Fitzgerald leaned forward so quickly, his glasses nearly fell off his nose. "Young man, what do you mean, real Will?" Tyler stood there, unwavering, his small hands steady at his sides. In that moment, my 9-year-old son looked exactly like his grandfather, determined, unafraid, and holding secrets that could change everything. 3 days before the will reading, I was arranging Dad's funeral flowers, making sure his favorite white roses were perfect. Each petal had to be pristine, because Harold Covington deserved nothing less. The funeral director kept trying to suggest red roses or mixed arrangements, but I stood firm. Dad had planted white roses for Mom in their garden 30 years ago, and every anniversary, every birthday, every special occasion, he'd cut fresh ones for her. Now they would blanket his casket, a final connection between them. Harold Covington wasn't just my father, he was my anchor in every storm life threw at me. When my husband walked out 6 years ago, leaving me with a 3-year-old and a mortgage I couldn't afford, Dad didn't hesitate. He showed up at my door with his toolbox and a plan. "Rachel, honey, you're moving back home until you get on your feet," he'd said, already loading boxes into his truck. No judgment, no lectures about choosing the wrong man, just unconditional love and support. After Mom passed 8 years ago from a sudden heart attack, I became his companion through grief. Every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, I'd bring him fresh coffee and blueberry muffins from Mabel's Bakery down the street. The coffee had to be dark roast with just a splash of cream, the way he'd drunk it for 50 years. We'd sit on his wraparound porch, the one he'd built with his own hands, watching the cardinals at his bird feeder while Tyler played with his toy trucks in the yard. "Rachel, you're the best daughter a man could ask for," Dad would say, patting my hand with his weathered fingers. Those hands told the story of his life, scarred from decades of woodworking, strong from building furniture that would outlast generations, gentle when teaching Tyler how to sand with the grain, not against it. His furniture store, Covington Craftsman, had been the pride of Millbrook for 40 years. People drove from 3 states away to buy his handmade dining sets and bedroom suites. Derek was cut from different cloth entirely. My older brother had inherited Mom's sharp features, but none of her warm heart. While I spent weekends helping Dad in the workshop, Derek spent them calculating what everything was worth. He'd walk through the house like an appraiser, mentally cataloging values. "That grandfather clock's worth at least $5,000, he'd mutter, or "We could get $30,000 for Mom's jewelry collection." When Dad got sick 3 years ago, the diagnosis hit like a sledgehammer: pancreatic cancer, stage 3. The doctor gave him 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. Dad beat those odds by 2 full years through sheer stubbornness and the desire to see Tyler grow up a little more. Derek showed up exactly once during that first terrible week. I found him in Dad's study going through financial documents while our father lay in bed, weak from his first round of chemotherapy. "Just want to know what's what, Dad," Derek had said when Dad weakly called out asking what he was doing. "Someone needs to get your affairs in order." "My affairs are my business." Dad had replied with as much strength as he could muster. "When I'm ready, I'll handle them." That was the last time Derek set foot in the house. He claimed he was too busy with his real estate business in Chicago that he couldn't make the 4-hour drive. But he had time to call Dad's attorney, trying to get information about the estate. Mr. Fitzgerald told me later that Derek had called 6 times in 1 month, pressing for details about Dad's assets. Meanwhile, Tyler and I moved into Dad's house to care for him. Tyler adored his grandfather with the pure love only a child can give. They had this magical bond that transcended age and illness. Even when Dad was too weak to stand, he'd sit in his wheelchair in the garage, directing Tyler through simple woodworking projects. "Measure twice, cut once," he'd tell Tyler, the same words his own father had taught him. "A true craftsman respects the wood, understands its grain, works with it, not against it." Their matching canvas aprons hung on hooks by the workshop door. One XXL, worn and stained with decades of use, one child's small, still pristine, but beginning to show marks of real work. "Someday, little man, you'll build something beautiful with these hands," Dad would tell Tyler, guiding his small fingers along the smooth grain of oak. "Something that will last long after we're gone. That's the real legacy, Tyler, creating beauty that endures." The cancer took Dad on a Tuesday morning in October. The leaves outside his window had turned golden, his favorite season arriving just in time to say goodbye. Tyler and I were there, holding his hands as his breathing grew shallow. His last words to me were clear despite his weakness. "Take care of my workshop, Rachel. You know what to do. Everything I built was for you and Tyler." To Tyler, he whispered something I couldn't quite hear, their heads close together in a final conspiracy of love. Tyler nodded solemnly, kissed his grandfather's cheek, and then Dad smiled one last time before closing his eyes forever. The law office of Fitzgerald and Associates smelled like old leather and disappointment. The building itself was a converted Victorian home on Main Street, its walls lined with law books that probably hadn't been opened in decades. Derek arrived 15 minutes late, wearing an expensive suit I'd never seen before. Italian leather shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. He didn't even acknowledge Tyler and me sitting there, just nodded at Mr. Fitzgerald like they were old friends sharing a secret. "Let's get this over with," Derek said, checking his Rolex, the same watch Dad had given him for his college graduation 20 years ago. "I've got a flight to catch, big development deal in Miami." Mr. Fitzgerald cleared his throat and adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. He was Dad's attorney for 30 years, had handled Mom's estate, had drawn up the papers when Dad bought the furniture store. His hands shook slightly as he opened the manila folder. "The last will and testament of Harold James Covington, dated 6 months ago." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "This document supersedes all previous wills and codicils." The words that came next shattered my world into a million pieces. "To my son, Derek Covington, I leave my entire estate, including the house at 412 Maple Street, all bank accounts totaling approximately $400,000, and my furniture workshop Covington Craftsman, including all tools, inventory, and business assets. My daughter Rachel abandoned me in my time of need. She shall receive nothing." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the breath from my lungs. "That's impossible!" I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. My hands shaking, I gripped the edge of the table. "Mr. Fitzgerald, I was there every day. I have the hospice records, the nurses know me by name, the neighbors saw me there every single morning." "Sorry, Rachel," Derek interrupted, that cruel smile spreading across his face like oil on water. "Dad, saw through your act. Probably got tired of your hovering, your constant need for attention. You always were so needy, even as a kid." "You haven't visited him in 5 years," I shouted, tears streaming down my face despite my efforts to stay composed. "You didn't even come to his birthday parties. Tyler and I celebrated every single one. We were there for every chemotherapy appointment, every sleepless night." Mr. Fitzgerald looked deeply uncomfortable, shifting papers nervously. "I'm sorry, Miss Covington. The will appears to be legally binding. It was properly witnessed and notarized. 2 witnesses signed it, both employees at the bank where your father did business." Derek leaned back in his chair, interlacing his fingers behind his head. Dad knew who really cared about him, not someone just playing nurse for an inheritance. I talked to him on the phone plenty. We had a connection you wouldn't understand, a father-son bond that goes deeper than just showing up." "What phone calls?" I demanded, my voice breaking. Dad could barely hold a phone the last year. His arthritis was so bad I had to dial numbers for him. And you never called, not once. I was there, Derek. I would have known. "Details, details." Derek waved his hand dismissively. "The will says what it says. Dad made his choice. Maybe if you hadn't been so controlling, keeping him dependent on you, things would be different." Mr. Fitzgerald continued reading in a monotone voice. "Personal effects, including all jewelry, photographs, and memorabilia, are also left to Derek Covington. The contents of the workshop, including all Harold Covington's handmade pieces and tools collected over 40 years, become the sole property of Derek Covington. Even Mom's jewelry." My voice was barely a whisper now. Her wedding ring? The locket with Tyler's baby picture that Dad kept by his bedside? "Everything," Derek said flatly. "Dad wanted it to stay with the son who carries the Covington name forward. Your kid's name is Covington only because you couldn't keep a husband." The cruelty of that statement made even Mr. Fitzgerald flinch. I felt Tyler's small hand slip into mine, squeezing tight. I'd told him to be good during this meeting, that this was adult business, but I could feel him trembling beside me. "There must be an earlier will," I said desperately. "Dad had one made 5 years ago after Mom died. He told me about it, said everything was divided fairly." "This will supersedes all others," Mr. Fitzgerald repeated, though he wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's dated 6 months ago, during a time when your father was still legally competent. The bank witnesses confirmed he was of sound mind when he signed it." Derek stood up, smoothing his suit. "I'll need the house keys, Rachel. You have 30 days to vacate. I'm being generous. Legally, I could demand you leave immediately." That's when Tyler stood up on his chair, his small frame shaking, but his voice crystal clear. "Mr. Fitzgerald," Tyler said, his young voice cutting through the tension like a knife through silk. "My grandpa told me something important before he died. He said Uncle Derek did something bad to his real will." The room went completely still. Derek's smirk vanished instantly, replaced by something I'd never seen on my brother's face before, raw fear. His hands, which had been casually drumming on the table, froze mid-motion. The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. "Tyler, honey, sit down," I said softly, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to protect him from whatever was about to happen, but another part recognized the determination in his young face, the same look Dad got when he was about to stand his ground. "No, Mom. Grandpa said I had to be brave. He said to wait until everyone was together and then tell the truth." Tyler turned to Mr. Fitzgerald, his chin raised high. "Grandpa said Uncle Derek came to the house 2 weeks before he died. It was a Wednesday. When Nurse Patricia went to lunch at noon, like she always does, Grandpa was too weak to stop him or call for help." Derek stood up abruptly, his chair falling backward with a crash. "This is ridiculous. You're going to listen to a child's fantasy? He's 9 years old. Kids make up stories all the time." But Mr. Fitzgerald held up his hand, his professional instincts clearly engaged now. "Young man, what exactly did your grandfather tell you? Please, be as specific as you can." Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out something that made everyone gasp. A small USB drive on a chain, barely bigger than his thumb. "Grandpa gave me this the night before he died. He said it has a video on it. He recorded it on his tablet when Uncle Derek was in his office. Grandpa pretended to be asleep, but he saw everything through the mirror on his dresser. The tablet was hidden under his blanket." "This is absurd," Derek's voice cracked, rising an octave. "The kid's making things up. You can't possibly admit some random USB drive as evidence." "There's more," Tyler continued, his voice steady despite his age. "Grandpa said Uncle Derek took papers from the safe. The real will. The one Grandpa made with you, Mr. Fitzgerald, last year when he was still strong enough to drive himself here. Uncle Derek put in a different one. Grandpa saw him practicing Dad's signature in the garage workshop. I saw the practice papers, too. They're hidden behind the old paint cans on the 3rd shelf." Mr. Fitzgerald leaned forward urgently. "Tyler, did your grandfather tell you anything about another will? Did he say if he contacted anyone about this?" Tyler nodded solemnly. He said, "You have it, Mr. Fitzgerald, in your email. He sent it to you 3 months ago from his tablet, but Uncle Derek told him he called you and said to ignore any emails from Grandpa because he was confused from the medicine. Grandpa heard Uncle Derek make that call from the hallway." The lawyer's face went pale, as death. He immediately turned to his computer, his fingers fumbling with the keyboard. "I did receive a call about Mr. Covington experiencing dementia. The caller said Harold was sending confused emails to everyone, that the family was handling it." His fingers flew across the keyboard with increasing urgency. "Oh my God, here it is, an email with an attached will document dated 3 months ago. I archived it without opening it after that phone call." "Don't open that," Derek shouted, moving toward the desk. "That's not legal. You can't just produce new evidence out of nowhere. This is a setup." "Derek, I strongly advise you to sit down and remain quiet," Mr. Fitzgerald said, his voice taking on an edge of steel I hadn't heard before. "What Tyler is describing, if true, constitutes fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. These are serious criminal charges." Tyler continued, his small voice filling the room. "Grandpa couldn't move much, but he could still use his tablet with one finger. He practiced for weeks when Uncle Derek wasn't around, learning how to record video without looking at the screen. He said Uncle Derek thought he was too old and sick to understand technology, but Grandpa said even dying men can learn new tricks when they need to protect their family. He also told me exactly where to find the practice signatures," Tyler added. "Behind the red paint cans, not the blue ones, 37 sheets of paper where Uncle Derek practiced copying Grandpa's signature. Grandpa counted them from his bed. He could see Uncle Derek through the window throwing them away. But Uncle Derek didn't know Grandpa could see the garage from his bed if he propped himself up just right." Derek's face had gone from white to red to purple. "Even if any of this is true, which it's not, that video won't be admissible in court. This is hearsay. This is entrapment." "Actually," Mr. Fitzgerald said, pulling out his phone, "video evidence of a crime in progress, combined with physical evidence and documented communications, would very likely be admissible. And if those practice signatures exist where Tyler says they are, along with this email I'm looking at right now, we have a very serious situation." "Everyone, please remain seated," Mr. Fitzgerald commanded, his professional composure returning with full force. He plugged Tyler's USB drive into his computer with the careful precision of someone handling evidence. "Derek, I strongly advise you to stay. Leaving now will only make things worse for you." Derek was already moving toward the door, his expensive shoes slipping on the polished floor. "This is entrapment. That video isn't legal. I'm calling my lawyer right now." "Sit down, Mr. Covington." The lawyer's voice turned to steel. "If you leave this room before we review this evidence, I'll have no choice but to immediately contact the police and report flight risk." Derek froze at the door handle, then slowly turned back, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. He slumped into his chair like a deflated balloon. Mr. Fitzgerald turned his computer monitor toward us and clicked play. The video was shaky, clearly recorded from where Dad lay in bed, the tablet hidden under blankets. But the image was clear enough through the dresser mirror's reflection, and the audio was crystal clear. There was Derek, rifling through Dad's mahogany desk, pulling papers from the wall safe Dad had installed 20 years ago. "Where is it, old man?" Derek's voice muttered on the recording. "I know you changed it after I asked for my advance. You always were too soft on Rachel." The sound of papers rustling filled the room. "There. This is it. Rachel gets everything. The house, the workshop, the accounts, $400,000 and she gets 70%? That's not happening. Not when I'm the one who deserves it." We watched in horror as Derek pulled out different papers from his briefcase, examining them carefully under Dad's desk lamp. The video showed him placing the new documents in the safe, then taking the original will to the small wastebasket. The strike of a match was audible, then the flare of flame as he burned the real will, making sure every piece turned to ash. "Mr. Fitzgerald, this is Derek Covington." Derek's recorded voice spoke clearly as he made a phone call. "My father's been having severe dementia episodes lately. Very confused, sending strange emails to everyone. If you receive any communications from him, please disregard them. I'm handling his affairs now as he's no longer competent. Yes, it's very sad. The cancer has affected his mind. The next part of the video made my blood run cold. Derek walked over to where Dad lay in bed, thinking he was asleep. "Sorry, Pops, but I've waited long enough. 41 years of being the responsible son while Rachel plays the princess. Time for the Covington name to mean something again." He actually patted Dad's hand before leaving. The video continued for another 30 seconds, and then we saw Dad's eyes open. He'd been awake the entire time, unable to move or speak due to his medication, but fully aware. A single tear rolled down his cheek as he slowly moved his one working finger to stop the recording. The lawyer paused the video. "This is evidence of fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Tyler, you said there are practice signatures?" Tyler nodded firmly. "Behind the red paint cans in the garage, third shelf from the bottom. Grandpa watched Uncle Derek practice for 3 hours. He said Uncle Derek came back 4 different times to practice more." Mr. Fitzgerald was already dialing his phone. "Patricia, this is Arthur Fitzgerald. You were Harold Covington's hospice nurse. Do you remember a day about 2 weeks before he passed when Mr. Covington's son Derek visited during your lunch break?" "Yes, I'll wait." He put the phone on speaker. Patricia's voice filled the room. "Yes, I remember. October 2nd. It was unusual because Derek hadn't visited once in 3 years. I mentioned to Harold when I got back that it was nice his son finally came, but Harold got agitated. He kept trying to tell me something but couldn't form the words. I thought it was the morphine." "Thank you, Patricia. Would you be willing to provide a sworn statement about this?" "Absolutely. Harold was a good man. If something wrong happened, I want to help make it right." Mr. Fitzgerald then opened the email attachment from 3 months ago. This is the real will, properly witnessed by Patricia Henley and Dorothy Banks, both registered nurses. It leaves the house to Rachel, the workshop to Tyler when he turns 18 with Rachel as trustee until then, and splits the monetary assets, 70% to Rachel, 30% to Derek. "Dad still left you something." I turned to Derek in disbelief. "Even after everything, he still left you 30%, over $100,000. Derek's face was purple with rage and fear. "That video won't hold up in court. You need more than that." "Actually," Mr. Fitzgerald said, already composing an email, "we have the video evidence, the forged signatures you practiced. The false will, with what I'm certain, will prove to be forged signatures. Witness testimony, and the original will sent before you claimed Harold was incompetent. Detective Morrison, this is Arthur Fitzgerald. I need you at my office immediately. We have a case of will fraud and elder abuse that requires immediate attention." Derek was arrested that afternoon in Mr. Fitzgerald's office. 2 police officers led him away in handcuffs while he shouted about getting his lawyers and suing everyone in the room. The practice signatures behind the paint cans matched exactly what he'd submitted as Dad's real signature. 37 sheets of paper, just as Tyler had said, each one showing Derek's progression from clumsy imitation to near-perfect forgery. The forensic document examiner the police brought in confirmed within an hour that the signature on the fake will was fraudulent. Nurse Patricia provided her sworn statement that same day, along with Dorothy Banks, who remembered the original will signing clearly. "Harold was completely lucid that day," Dorothy testified. "He even joked about making sure Rachel got his mother's china cabinet because she was the only one who'd ever properly dusted it." The bank employees who'd supposedly witnessed the fake will admitted under questioning that they'd never actually seen Harold sign anything. Derek had brought them the document already signed, claiming his father was too ill to come in person. The forensic accountant Mr. Fitzgerald brought in discovered something even worse. Derek had been stealing from Dad's accounts for 2 years, small amounts of $500 here, $1,000 there, always just below the threshold that would trigger bank notifications. In total, he'd stolen $43,000 while Dad was fighting cancer. He'd used Dad's checkbook during that one visit, writing checks to himself and forging Dad's signature, the same signature he'd been practicing in the garage. 3 weeks later, Tyler and I stood in Grandpa's workshop. Sunlight streamed through the windows onto the workbench where 3 generations of Covington men had created beauty from raw wood. The smell of sawdust and lemon oil filled the air, exactly as it had when Dad was alive. Tyler ran his small hand along the smooth surface of the bench, feeling the grooves and marks from decades of work. "Mom, why did Grandpa tell me and not you about the video?" I knelt beside him, pulling him close. Because he knew Uncle Derek would expect me to fight back. He'd be watching me, waiting for me to make a move. But nobody expects a 9-year-old to be the hero. Grandpa always said you noticed things others missed, that you had an old soul in a young body. Tyler picked up one of Grandpa's carving tools, a cherry-handled chisel that had belonged to his own father. He taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means doing what's right even when you are scared. I was really scared in that room, Mom. I know, baby, but you did it anyway. That's real courage. Grandpa said something else, Mom, the night before he died. Tyler's eyes met mine, wise beyond his years. He said Uncle Derek was always jealous because Grandpa loved you more, not because you visited or took care of him, but because you loved him back without wanting anything. Uncle Derek only loved money. Grandpa said Derek had been angry since you were kids, always counting what everyone else got, never grateful for what he had. I pulled Tyler close, tears in my eyes. Your grandpa was a smart man, and he raised you to be just like him. Mom? Tyler asked. Can we keep the workshop exactly like Grandpa left it? When I'm 18, I want to make furniture just like he did. I want to continue Covington Craftsman. Of course, sweetheart, it's your inheritance, your legacy. Derek got 7 years in prison for elder abuse, fraud, and forgery. The judge called it one of the most callous cases of family betrayal he'd seen in 30 years on the bench. Derek lost his 30% inheritance due to the crimes, which the court awarded to Tyler's education fund. Mr. Fitzgerald helped me establish a trust that would pay for Tyler's college and give him startup capital for the workshop when he turned 18. But the most valuable thing Dad left us wasn't in any will. It was the lesson that truth, no matter how small its messenger, will always find a way to surface. Sometimes it takes a child's innocence to reveal what adults try to hide. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the most powerful message. And sometimes a grandfather's faith in his grandson can defeat the greed of grown men. Tyler still wears that USB drive on a chain around his neck, not because we need the evidence anymore, but because it reminds him of the day his grandfather's trust in him changed everything. The day a 9-year-old boy stood up to a bully and won, armed with nothing but the truth and the courage his grandfather gave him. In Dad's workshop, we hung a new sign next to the old Covington Craftsman logo: measure twice, cut once, and always trust the truth to surface. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps these stories reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful real-life stories that remind us of the strength of family, truth, and justice. And remember, sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. Thank you for watching.